Welcome to the late Wednesday night, just before Thursday, Whiteboard Wednesday video. Here we go with today's Whiteboard Wednesday. This is not so much of an interview question in itself, but more so of a building block. Kind of like reversing a string allowed us to answer more complicated questions like palindromes and things like that. We need to be able to answer other complicated questions, potentially about strings. So today is more of a building block to get to those more tough questions. And I'm calling it break it down as our function today. And the goal is to take any string and break it down into what is a map of its characters. So with our input of affirming fungus over here, we need to account for there being one space, one A, three Fs, two Gs, two Is, etc. We are taking a count of the characters that appear in that string, which allows us to answer some more complex questions about it. Off the top of my head, are there any characters repeated more than once? We could loop through that object, if it was a JavaScript object, and be able to say, yeah, there are a couple repeating elements inside of this string. What is the highest occurring letter in the string? With this little guy right here, we can quickly see it is F by saying it's appearing 3 times more than anything else. You could also account for lowercase and uppercase letters. Breaking down a string of capital A affirming fungus would have one capital A, or if we had one random capital F on fungus, it would have one capital F and 2 lowercase f's. We could also take that input string and sanitize it by doing 2 lowercase to make sure they're all lowercase letters. Special characters are accounted for. You can see the usefulness of having this building block to answer more complicated questions. So let's go ahead and dive on in. I have my normal setup, a function. We're going to call it break it down. It's going to take some kind of string as its input. It's going to return this object map we're looking for, the broken down version of the string as I'm calling it. Our output here is going to be whatever break it down returns based on the input of affirming fungus. I had to find some random words that had at least a couple repeating characters to show off this example here. Somehow I ended up on affirming fungus. Okay, and we're going to just console log the output as usual. Let's begin. Let's dive on in. Going to give myself some room to think here. Probably somewhere near the top, we're going to need to have some kind of constant that will be our breakdown string. And we're going to make it a JavaScript object. Breakdown. So we can use this JavaScript object and object key and values. We're going to use these pairs to our advantage. If you notice in the desired output, the keys of this object or properties will be the letters of the string, and the values will be how many times they occur in this string. As always, before we forget, at the bottom of our function, I'm going to go ahead and return the breakdown string before I goof and forget to do so, get an undefined, and try to figure out panickingly where I messed up. All right. Now, sandwiching our logic here, we are going to take full advantage of the for of loop, where we're going to say for let character, or char, or whatever you want to call it, let character of string, and we're going to run our loop across the string. If you recall what this does, character will represent string at position I if it was a traditional for loop, aka each letter of that string. So this is a quick console log. We're going to get undefined at the bottom of it. I know it's because our output down here will be logging undefined since returning a blank object. So rather than undefined, we're actually going to get this blank object right here. So if I just console log character as a quick test and save this file, there we go. We get our array of characters right up there, which, you know, there it is. That's what we're looking to do, but putting it into a JavaScript object instead. So I'm going to take this logic, and what we need to do is create a new key at breakdown with each character. And we can do that actually very simply. I've shown this to a lot of my students and not necessarily blown their mind, but opened their eyes to this kind of syntax. If you didn't know, you might assume that breakdown is an array, and this is a index position character, which is actually not. It is saying, hey, take the breakdown object right here, and we're going to create a new key involving the character. And the first time it occurs, we need to give it some kind of value. And the first time it occurs, it makes sense to me to give it a value of 1. Now, this is where we need to differentiate between the first time it appears, which is what this indicates, and any subsequent time. And what better way to catch some kind of if condition than our good old buddy, the if-else statement. So our condition will be, does this breakdown character key exist already inside of our object. And we can literally simplify it down in here by writing it as such. Does this exist and is it true? Because if it's true, that means it exists, and we need to increment it by 1. So we can take breakdown at position character and add 1 to its current value. Otherwise, it's the first time it's going to appear, and we need to, bam, initialize it with its character key and its number the first time we see it. And believe it or not, that is all we need here in our code. It's going to take some input string, prepare our breakdown object, loop through the string with each individual character of that string. It's going to check to see if the key in our object already exists, with our above example being a space, an A, F, G, etc. If it does, go ahead and add 1 to the current value and reassign itself. Remember, this plus equals is just shorthand. So it's going to assign and add 1 to its current value. Otherwise, it's the first time it's appearing, which means we need to make that key and auto-assign it to the value 1, aka the first appearance of that character. And at the very end of the function, as always, we need to return breakdown, which is our object right here, and let's give it a shot. So affirming fungus, as you can see with our desired output, should generate something that looks like that. I'm going to go ahead and save this file. We're going to hop back over to expand this object a little bit, and hopefully y'all can see that here as I'm tabbing between. Yeah, I'll have to do some scrolling. It's quite all right. We have our desired output. 1 space, 1 A, a couple Fs, 3 Fs to be exact, 2 Gs, 2 Is, etc., etc. And this is what we were looking for. We were looking for an object that has keys of the letters with the number of times they appear in the string as our values. Now that we have this building block set up for us, we can take this and, like I said, be able to find, hey, inside of the breakdown object, what key has the highest value, because that would be the letter that occurs the most times in a string. A more complicated interview question you might encounter as a junior JavaScript developer or any other language developer, and now you have an idea, a construct of how to approach a more complicated problem by using this building block. So prepare to see this logic either redone in a different fashion with another solution to the same problem, since I love showing different ways of attacking one particular problem. Otherwise, prepare to see it again in more complicated questions. Heck, maybe next week will be how to find the highest occurring letter in a string, just to make my life easy and to give y'all maybe some homework. If you want to leave some comments below, hit us up in our Covalence Discord channels and let me know your attempt to solve that particular interview question. Hopefully y'all enjoyed this and have a lovely, lovely rest of your Wednesday.